I will never forget that night. I walked up to my front door with my shoes still dusty after 6 hours of driving through the night. The porch light flickered, and a shadow crawled across the tile as if reaching for life. It was Marion, my wife, her lips cracked, her hands shaking as they touched the spigot, the walker tipped on its side beside her. I hadn't even called her name when I heard glasses clink in the living room and a loud, familiar laugh. Tyler, my son. He raised a glass of wine and joked about the independence of the elderly. I stood in the dark, a cold feeling spreading through me. 35 years building a family, and that night I understood. The boy I raised had turned this house into a trap for his own mother. That night, I swore I'd spring that trap open not with anger but with justice. If you're still here, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Every comment helps this story reach more hearts, and if it moved you, give it a like so others can find it too. My name is Lawrence Cole, 68 years old. For almost 40 years, I built the real estate empire Cole Development Group from a vacant lot in Arizona. I used to think I understood every trick and every deceitful move in life. But it turns out what breaks a man isn't failure, it's when he sees the person he loves most betrayed inside the home he built. My flight to Denver that night was canceled because of a snowstorm. I should have stayed at the hotel and waited until morning, but I felt strangely restless. Something pushed me to go home. 6 hours driving overnight along I-40, each mile sunk in amber light and cold mist. I called Marion when I reached Flagstaff, just to tell her I'd be home early. The phone rang 12 times and then stopped. I figured she was asleep. The pain pills these past weeks made her nod off easily. When I turned onto Stonefield, my heart started pounding. Our familiar 2-story house, the place once full of laughter, was unusually quiet. The garage door was still closed, but light spilled from the living room. I opened the door with the remote, shut off the engine, and stepped out. The winter air was dry and cold, the smell of scorched grass mixed with a faint hint of wine on the breeze. I was about to walk straight in when I heard dripping water somewhere in the yard. The porch light flickered, and then I saw a figure. Marion, in gray pajamas, crawling on her elbows across the tile, her hands groping for something. When I ran closer, I realized she was trying to reach the backyard spigot. The walker had rolled onto its side a few yards away, and her lips were split and dry. I called softly, but she didn't answer. She just panted and trembled like someone coming out of a nightmare. Then laughter came from inside. Tyler's voice. "My son. Let Mom learn to be independent," he said. I froze, every muscle in my face tightening. No, this couldn't be Tyler, the son I taught to show respect, the boy I held when he lost his foster mother. But that voice, that laugh, I couldn't mistake them. I didn't charge in. I took a long breath and walked to the water meter by the restage fence. The protective plumb lock was gone. The valve had been turned to a quarter open. I eased it. Water roared like a scream held back for days. My chest clenched. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate staging. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and recorded every detail: valve position, meter number, even the broken lock. Under the yellow light, the needle crept slowly like the heartbeat of betrayal. I knew I had to stay calm. Anger now would only cost me evidence. When I came in through the back door, the scene made me want to retch. Tyler and his wife, Brianna, were sitting on the sofa, glasses of red wine in hand, chatting as if this were a celebration. "Home early, Dad?" Brianna feigned surprise, her voice sugar-sweet. Tyler shrugged. "We're just talking about a safer future for you two." A safer future. Those two words echoed in my head like a deadbolt sliding shut. I walked past them without a word. In the house, the kitchen faucet ran so. Weakly, it barely wet a fingertip. The bathroom was the same water dripping tiredly, but the outdoor spigot still ran strong. I remembered Marion crawling there like a person dying of thirst in a desert. I slipped quietly into my office. The mail tray on the walnut desk was piled with unopened letters. I tore open the water bill. Usage had dropped by more than 80% over 3 weeks, just enough to avoid the automatic alert system. Someone had deliberately reduced the flow on a schedule. When I returned to the bedroom, Marion sat shaking on the bed, her eyes unfocused. She spoke softly, her voice hoarse. "I think maybe I'm getting confused. Tyler says the low water is from old pipes. He says I should go to assisted living if I keep forgetting to drink." I sat beside her and gently squeezed her dry hand. "You're not confused, Marion. You're being deceived." But I couldn't tell her everything, not yet. I knew if I confronted him now, Tyler would erase every trace, and I needed evidence, not anger. When Marion fell back asleep, I quietly locked the home camera app, turned on cloud storage, and backed everything up to a hard drive. Every frame, every drip, every shadow moving in the house, all preserved. Before going to bed, I walked into the yard and looked at the stream of water pouring from the spigot. In the moonlight, it glittered like a warning. Tomorrow morning, I would make the whole neighborhood witness the truth. And if Tyler thought he could turn his mother into someone senile, then my son was about to learn the biggest lesson of his life. Never play games with a man who has lived by evidence and contracts. I was born in Yuma, Arizona, in an old trailer right off the highway. In summer, the metal roof got so hot you couldn't touch it. In winter, wind and sand blew through the door gaps and made the whole place hiss like a lament. My father worked loading and unloading at the docks. My mother sewed for the Mexican families nearby. I grew up with the smell of machine oil, sweat, and the belief that if I wanted respect, I had to build something with my own 2 hands. In 1988, while friends still dreamed about college, I dropped everything to buy a vacant lot in Tucson. 6 years later, from that lot, I built my first shopping center. Then another in Mesa, another in Henderson. For 30 years, I built Cole Development Group, owning 21 commercial centers across Arizona and Nevada. Our net worth is about $12.4 million, mostly in real estate. I'm not a billionaire, but I'm a man solid enough not to bow to anyone. We bought the house in North Scottsdale in 1999, when Tyler was still in high school. $2.9 million paid off long ago. It was the reward for a lifetime of work, the place I believed my wife and I would enjoy a peaceful old age. I'm not extravagant, no yachts, no supercars. Marion is the same, simple. Loves planting lavender on the bluffs, porch, and reading before bed. We live by discipline, down to each mealtime, each pill, each bill paid. Marion is tougher than anyone I know. When the doctor said she needed a hip replacement, she just smiled. Another hinge for life, that's all. The surgery went well, but the doctor told her to use a walker for at least 3 months. I figured it wasn't a big deal, just time to recover. Tyler, our only son, 35, is still finding himself. Marketing, then crypto, then insurance, nothing stuck. I once told him, sometimes you don't need to find yourself. You just need to find responsibility. He smiled and looked away. Brianna, his wife, is a nurse, calm, smooth-spoken. They rent a townhouse 15 minutes away and still come for Sunday dinner. I used to think our family was still warm and loving, but things started to change after Marion's surgery. When I was busy at a job site or the office, Tyler often stopped by. At first I was glad, thought he had matured, caring for his mother. He helped cook, cleaned, fixed the steps. But then his comments began to bother me. This house is too big. Mom isn't safe getting around. Have you two ever thought about moving somewhere safer? I asked Marion, and she just said, he's worried about me. I believed it, until Brianna showed up with pamphlets, ads for premium assisted living facilities, with pools, gardens, and smiling staff. She spoke gently, like someone who truly cared. We're just afraid Mom might fall. At my work, a lot of patients wait too long to move in, and the consequences are severe. I remember I smiled then. A real smile, naive enough to be embarrassing. I thought the kids were looking out for us, that it was just clumsy concern. I didn't know that behind those smiles was a carefully prepared script. The visits became more frequent, and each time Tyler found a new reason. Mom forgot her meds. Mom forgot to turn off the stove. Mom needs supervision. At first, Marion resisted, but slowly, she began to believe she was getting weaker, that maybe Tyler was right, and I, too busy with work, missed the signs. Looking back now, everything was smooth, too smooth to be random. Every action, every word, steered Marion to one conclusion. She no longer could care for herself. And the solution Tyler offered sounded humane, a place called a professional care community. But now I understand it wasn't a place to heal, it was a legal prison wrapped in affection. And the night I came home early, that wrapping fell off completely. Behind the concern, the whine, and the smiles was a scheme, meticulous, cold, staged by the very person I once called the pride of my life. The next morning, I sat by the bed, watching Marion try to stir her coffee, her hand shaking so hard the coffee sloshed over the rim. Her face was pale, eyes sunken, lips still cracked. I touched her hand. Her skin felt frighteningly cold. "I'm fine," she whispered. "It's probably just that I haven't had much water these days." Hearing that made my heart ache. In my mind, the image of her crawling to the spigot the night before returned like a wound that wouldn't heal. At noon, while Marion slept, I found the small journal she kept on the nightstand. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged. November 10th, thirsty, dizzy. Keep forgetting to drink water. November 12th, Tyler says the house is too big, dangerous. Maybe he's right. November 14th, Brianna told me about an older patient who fell in the kitchen. I'm scared. November 16th, water pressure is low, must be old pipes, tired, no appetite. I closed the notebook, my hand clenched white. This wasn't weakness from meds or age. This was deliberate manipulation. I went through the house with the pressure gauge I used on job sites. Kitchen faucet, 15 pounds per square inches. Primary bath, 14 pounds per square inches. Living room, only 12 pounds per square inches. But the backyard spigot, the one Marion crawled to last night, held steady at 68 pounds per square inches. Perfect pressure. I understood immediately. Someone had tampered directly with the system, throttling the whole house while leaving one outdoor line at full flow. Not an accident, a trap. In the office drawer, I opened the stack of unopened mail. 3 weeks of water bills showed usage dropping gradually, a little each week, just enough to avoid the automatic alert system. Whoever did this was in no hurry. They knew how to hide inside habit. The more I looked, the more the details lined up. Tyler stopped by exactly on the days the water dropped sharply. Brianna talked more about mom's safety, about big houses exhausting the elderly. They were building a story, that Marion was weak, confused, and that the son was the only one responsible enough to decide for her. Brianna often carried her phone, filming every moment. At first I thought they were cute clips for the family, but when she left her bag on the sofa that day, I checked. There were many clips of Marion fumbling with a pill cap, spilling water on the table, or dozing off mid-meal. Everything was tightly edited, with no original audio. Spliced together, they would make perfect evidence that Marion was losing the ability to care for herself. That afternoon, when Tyler left, I quietly opened his trunk. An envelope fell out. Inside was a deposit receipt for $5,900 to Sunset Mesa Residence, Premier Senior Living. The date matched when Marion started complaining of thirst and fatigue. I also found a business card for a man named Alan Reeves, attorney at law, compassionate transitions, with a note on the back, urgent guardianship filing in 72 hours. I sat in the garage holding that card for a long time. I wasn't angry anymore, just cold. Cold, because I realized everything was following a carefully calculated plan, and the person behind it was the son I had trusted completely. That night, after Marion slept, I checked the jewelry box in our bedroom. The diamond bracelet I gave her for our 35th anniversary gone. The gold Rolex I bought after my first major deal gone. I searched everywhere, even the safe, nothing. Marion probably thought she had misplaced them. I knew better someone was clearing out every marker of her competence so they could tell the world. She's starting to lose things. Her memory is failing. I stood in the bedroom, looking around the house that used to be my pride. Everything was in its place: wedding photos, the lavender vase, the warm bedside lamp, but the feeling of home was gone. In its place was a clever cage, where sweetness became a tool of control and filial piety a cover for greed. I sat at the desk, opened my work notebook, and began recording each detail: dates, times, bills, videos, water pressure, phone numbers, missing property evidence. Every line was a brick in the wall of justice I was building, and when I closed the notebook, I knew clearly this wasn't just a family dispute. This was a fake guardianship scheme dressed up as caring for parents. For the first time in my life, I felt fear, not because of old age, but because my son had learned to do evil in silence. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. That night, when the whole house was quiet, I sat in my office, opened my laptop, and looked up the number for Linda Carver, the attorney who had handled our estate for 12 years. Linda didn't just know the law. She understood how I think, and she knew I would never call in the middle of the night unless it was truly serious. The phone hadn't rung 3 times before Linda's voice came on, husky but alert. "Lawrence? What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I need to talk about potential elder abuse, and the person doing it is my son." Silence for a few seconds. Then Linda answered, slow and careful. "You're talking about Tyler?" "Yes, I have evidence." The water system was tampered with. Marion was recorded and manipulated to believe she's declining. They already put down a deposit for assisted living. Linda was quiet for a while, then spoke like someone who had already guessed the worst. "I've seen this. It's the compassionate care model that's actually financial elder abuse. They fabricate evidence of diminished capacity, file for guardianship, then seize control of the assets. She told me to photograph everything and upload it to her secure server immediately. I followed each step, sending the water bills, pictures of the turned meter, a copy of the facility deposit, and the card for the compassionate transitions lawyer. Early in the morning, Linda called back. Her voice was no longer gentle. It had the tone of someone holding a legal blade. I did a quick lookup on Tyler's finances through commercial databases. He owes about $370,000, including credit cards, personal loans, and especially nearly $200,000 in gambling debt from a site in Costa Rica. I gripped the phone. Now all the pieces fit. My son wasn't concerned. He was drowning and grabbing for anything. Linda continued, "Pressure from those creditors isn't simple. If Tyler doesn't pay, they'll threaten, even use violence. He's desperate for quick cash, and the solution is his parents." I said nothing. I could only hear my heart thudding in my chest. "But there's good news," Linda went on. "All of your assets are in the Cole Family Holdings Trust from 2019. Legally, you and Marion don't directly own anything. It's all managed by the trustee, and that's me. If Tyler files for guardianship, he only controls 2 people. He won't touch a dime." I gave a bitter but relieved smile. I used to think setting up the trust was a dry formality for the future. Who knew it would become a life-saving fortress today? Linda laid out the steps carefully. "First, you need to invalidate all powers of attorney with Tyler's name. I'll send the revocation and updated forms. Second, Amend the will to add a clause that anyone who tries to force guardianship against your wishes is disinherited permanently. Third, absolutely no direct confrontation. Let him expose himself. The calmer you are, the more the court trusts you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Every word from Linda sounded like metal striking metal firm, cold, and necessary. I spent the whole morning printing every document and arranging them chronologically. Marion's journal, the videos, the water bills, the deposit receipt, the attorney's card, photos of the missing jewelry. Seeing them stacked neatly in a folder, I saw the truth clearly. Tyler was getting ready to rob the safe, but he had no idea the safe was locked from the outside and the key was in my hand. I once thought I'd never need a lawyer to deal with my own son, but old age comes with falls no one prepares for. Have you ever faced a choice between family ties and justice? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes sharing is the best way to understand each other. By afternoon, Linda emailed to confirm. All of Tyler's representation rights were revoked, and the banks, hospitals, and insurance companies had been notified. We had blocked every path he could use. Now there's only one thing left, she wrote. Let him expose himself before the law. Don't warn him. Don't make concessions. Let your son believe he's in control when in fact he's stepping into the cage you built. I finished reading and sat quietly in my office, looking out the window toward the garden where Marion once planted lavender. A light breeze carried the scent of dried flowers and the metallic chill of truth. I never wanted to hurt my son, but sometimes, to save the one you love, a father has to become a judge. On Monday morning, I started the real sweep. No more suspicion or anger in the dark. This was the time to let the system step in. The first call was to APS Arizona Public Service, the utility for our area. I explained the situation briefly. I suspect someone tampered with a residential water meter to harm the health of an elderly person. The other end fell silent for a few seconds. Then the voice of an infrastructure security lead said, "Mr. Patterson, we'll send technicians and inspectors this afternoon. Please preserve the scene." 3 hours later, a white truck parked in front. 2 APS engineers stepped out in uniform with pressure gauges, seals, and inspection cameras. They crouched over the curbside valve box, taking meticulous notes. After nearly an hour, the younger engineer looked up and quietly told me, "This valve doesn't turn itself, sir. There are tool marks, and the plumb lock, which only the company or the homeowner should have, was cut." He handed me a preliminary report. It stated clearly, "Evidence of deliberate tampering, potential fraud or abuse case." When they left, I called Greg Sandoval, president of the Whispering Hills HOA, the man I helped win the community pool renovation bid a few years back. Greg came right over with a camera and a logbook. He walked around the yard, shaking his head at the dried flower beds, the mailbox stuffed with flyers, and the old watermarks around the porch spigot. "Strange," Greg said. "Your place is usually kept so well. Why does it look neglected now?" I smiled sadly. "Because someone wants it to look that way." Greg immediately wrote in the HOA report, "Deterioration appeared suddenly over 3 weeks, inconsistent with the resident's maintenance record. 2 reports, APS and HOA, were a pincer move. Both confirmed that the abnormal phenomenon had only appeared in the last 3 weeks, the exact window when Tyler began his special concern for his mother." Linda received all documents by email and almost immediately filed with Adult Protective Services, the state agency that investigates elder abuse. Within 24 hours, they replied, "Emergency investigation accepted. On-site inspection scheduled for Saturday." Saturday, the very day Tyler planned to take Marion to tour a senior facility. The plan clicked like clockwork. I just needed to let him sketch his own criminal portrait. I spent Tuesday night in the office, organizing papers and laying bait. On the desk, I deliberately left a fake file in plain sight, a bank statement for Coal Reserve Fund, showing a balance of $800,000, a few Nevada property ownership papers, and a few notes reading, "Transfer to Tyler if there's a health incident." They were all legally fabricated documents crafted by Linda, with a faint watermark so that when Tyler photographed them, each image would carry a unique identifier. I hid a small camera in the wall clock, tied into the cloud storage system. It would capture the moment Tyler accidentally discovered the bait. I also set a fake golf appointment for Saturday morning, the same time Tyler planned to take Marion to Sunset Mesa. He'd always known I was out on Saturdays, and that was exactly when I needed him most off guard. While waiting for opening night, I added another layer of defense. 2 temporary guards, former Phoenix police, started working, rotating shifts around the house. Linda warned that with Tyler's debt load, creditors might show up at the house. I wasn't going to let Marion be frightened again. Amid all the logistics, the only thing that eased me was Marion's discreet doctor's visit on Thursday morning. I wanted an independent medical statement that she was fully lucid, with no cognitive decline. The doctor, a longtime friend, examined Marion for over an hour, then put a hand on my shoulder. "She's clear-headed, just exhausted from dehydration and stress. I'll send the certification to Miss Carver." When we stepped out of the clinic, Marion looked at me, half smiling, half tired. "Are you hiding something from me?" I held her hand and answered softly, "I'm just fixing the pipes." She gave a small laugh and didn't ask more. Friday night, I sat alone in the office, looking at the numbered folders, the camera light glowing, and a house so quiet it felt unreal. I knew that by morning this house would no longer be quiet. Saturday, the day he would take his mother to a safer place, would be the day every mask fell. Saturday arrived in an eerie hush. Arizona sunlight slid through the blinds, dust motes hanging like they were waiting for a slow explosion. I got up early, made coffee, and rechecked all the security cameras and files. When the clock struck 11 a.m., the doorbell rang. The first to appear was Marcos Rivera, an adult protective services investigator, a Mexican-American man around 50, short but sharp-eyed. He showed his badge. "I'm here at Miss Carver's request to conduct an investigation into suspected elder abuse." I let him in. Marion sat in the living room, still startled by the unexpected visit. Marcos smiled warmly and said he needed to interview her privately in the bedroom to ensure objectivity. I nodded, stepped out to the porch, pretending to check my phone while actually watching the hallway camera. Marcos asked gently and patiently about the low water, the dizziness, the people who came and went. Marion answered honestly, sometimes blurring concern with coercion. When he measured water pressure room by room, the numbers matched what I'd recorded: 14 psi in the kitchen, 12 psi in the bathroom, and 68 psi at the outdoor spigot. He stayed quiet, just nodding, then compared them with the water bills I'd provided as Linda predicted. Consumption dropped steadily, week by week. "This can't be a coincidence," he said softly. "This indicates manipulation of infrastructure to disadvantage a dependent person." He took notes, photographed the meter, sealed the area, then called in on the radio. "Request urgent legal support, possible financial fraud and elder abuse." At exactly 12:30 p.m., red and blue lights flooded the front yard. A squad car stopped at the gate, followed by 2 unmarked vehicles. Out stepped Lieutenant Andrea Wu from the Fraud and Elder Abuse Task Force. Her face was firm. Her voice was crisp but respectful. "Mr. Lawrence Patterson, we have a warrant to search and to investigate evidence fabrication and elder abuse. Please cooperate." I simply nodded and brought her inside. Within minutes, the wide front yard was full. Police, APS, HOA representatives, and a few curious neighbors lingering by the curb. Phone cameras clicked. I'd never imagined the proudest house of my life would become the center of a criminal case. Around 1:45 p.m., A familiar Toyota Camry turned into the drive. Tyler was driving, Brianna in the passenger seat, and Marion per the plan in the back, oddly serene. As soon as the car stopped, Tyler got out and smiled at his mother. "I told you, you're going to love this place." But his smile died when he saw the line of official vehicles blocking the entry, police standing shoulder to shoulder. Lieutenant Wu stepped forward, voice even emotionless. "Tyler Patterson, you are under arrest for elder abuse, evidence fabrication, and tampering with public utilities. You have the right to remain silent." He stumbled back, eyes wide. "What? No, you're mistaken. I was only trying to help my parents." Brianna trembled, trying to hide her phone in her purse, but officers took control. When they opened the phone, the edited clips of Marion filled the screen, each carefully spliced segment now unmistakable fake evidence. I stepped forward without a word. I put my phone on speaker, the voicemail from Carlos, the creditor in Costa Rica. "Tyler, we're running out of patience. You said you'd get the money this week. Your family situation better resolve soon." A rough, cold voice. The whole street went silent. Tyler's face drained, his mouth opened, but no words came. The entire scheme, senior facility, videos, fake files collapsed with a single playback. Marion stood there, hands clutching the walker. Her eyes fixed on her son, not angry but disbelieving. "My God, Tyler, how could you do this to your mother?" Her voice shook, hoarse to a rasp. He dropped his head and cried out in panic. "I was trying to help. I owed money, but I was going to pay it back later." I looked at him for a long moment, then spoke slowly, my own calm surprising me. "You didn't just owe money, you owed your mother respect. And that's a debt no bank can forgive." The officers cuffed him and led him across the front lawn. Neighbors' cameras clicked, lights flashed. I stood on the porch, hand on the cold metal rail. No curses, no glare. I let the paperwork speak for me. Because some pain doesn't need shouting, it just needs the truth recorded with the right line, date, and time. Only a few days after Tyler's arrest, the legal system moved faster than I expected. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office filed 3 primary charges: unlawful interference with public utilities, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. I read the indictment with a heavy heart. Every line was accurate, every piece of evidence real, but none of it made me feel lighter. Brianna couldn't withstand the pressure. She confessed to the entire process of filming, editing, and staging confused elderly mother scenes. The health board immediately suspended her nursing license, pending an ethics investigation, and Alan Reeves, the compassionate transition attorney, was investigated by the state bar for suspected involvement in a string of dubious guardianship cases. Linda came to my house Wednesday morning with a new stack of files. Her face was steady, but her voice had the weight of cold steel. "I've updated the Cole Family Holdings Trust. From now on, anyone in the family who fabricates, deceives, or causes harm to you two directly or through others will be disinherited permanently." She paused, looked at me, and said softly, "The fortress is reinforced. But Lawrence, your greatest loss isn't money." She was right. Money can be earned again, a house can be repaired, a reputation fades, but trust once cracked, no law can mend it. The house grew quiet after the storm, but quiet didn't mean peace. Plumbers worked 3 days to restore normal pressure. The roar of water through the pipes sounded like a reminder that someone once tried to choke the breath out of this home. Meanwhile, legal costs surged. Linda doesn't work for money, but I still had to pay forensic specialists, investigators, and temporary security. Local papers ran small headlines. "Scottsdale businessman uncovers elder abuse plot by son." I never wanted my name to appear like that, but the deepest pain wasn't outside. It was Marion. One night, as I was putting away files, she stepped in, her calm eyes frightening in their steadiness. "You knew beforehand, didn't you?" she asked. I stayed silent. "You knew what Tyler was doing, and still let me." Her voice caught. "Still let me be the bait?" I bowed my head, no excuses. "You didn't trust me to be strong enough for the truth, Lawrence?" I swallowed and answered quietly. "I do trust you, but I needed ironclad proof. If I told you early, our son would have erased everything, and it would all slip into silence. But you forgot," she clenched her hands, "that while you gathered evidence, I believed I was losing my mind. You made me part of the plan, not a partner." I had no answer. She was right. I had put legal victory ahead of my wife's trust. After the case, Linda urged both of us to get therapy not only for Marion, but for me as well. "This kind of trauma lives not just in the victim," she said, "but in the protector." I listened and agreed. The first sessions were heavy. Marion often sat in long silence, staring out the window. I tried to tell cheerful stories, but whenever Tyler's name came up, her eyes filled. Even with him awaiting trial, his shadow lingered in every corner. One morning, I told Linda on the phone, "I want this to end as fast as possible." She answered immediately, "Don't. Justice is not traded for a marriage. Let the law finish. Forgiveness, if it comes, must follow the truth being recognized, not precede it." That line echoed in my head all evening. When the house went still, I sat on the sofa and watched Marion sleep in the next room. The kitchen faucet hummed, strong and full. I listened to the water run through the pipe, a sound once ordinary, now a fragile promise that maybe, someday, things could be normal again, if both of us still had the courage to trust one more time. 3 weeks after the first hearing, Tyler was transferred to a gambling addiction center in Tucson. Not prison, but not far off. A beige building in dry desert, ringed by a low fence and sparse cacti. When the squad car stopped, he glanced back at me and Marion with a look that mixed shame, panic, and a bit of hope he didn't yet understand. At intake, the doctor asked Tyler to say aloud why he was there. After a long silence, his voice shook. "I owe 6 figures to an offshore betting site. They threatened to visit my house if I don't pay. I was scared, so I did the worst thing a son can do. I tortured my mother. To steal money." No one forced that word, but he said it himself. Tortured. I watched the session online, my chest tightening. Maybe for the first time, he called his actions by their name. The center ran daily individual and group therapy. They taught him to journal, face guilt, and list triggers moments he lost control. Tyler said every loss felt like thirst. The more he lost, the more he gambled to win it back. When there was nothing left to regain, he looked to us like parents were the last money in the universe. Brianna visited twice, then stopped. In a private session, she cried and admitted, "I helped because I was scared. Scared of losing him, scared of creditors, scared of being hurt. I knew filming his mom was wrong, but I thought it was just temporary staging. Then it would be fine." After that, they separated. No blow-up, no blame, just a cold white space. A week later, the center contacted me and Marion, proposing family therapy. Marion went still, then said, "I'll go, not to forgive, to understand so I'll never be fooled by kinship again." The first meeting was in a small room, one round table, a few wooden chairs, soft amber light. Tyler sat across from Marion, hands clasped, eyes down. The clinician Dr. Holloway spoke evenly. "Addiction isn't only behavior. It's a temporary moral blindness. When the brain is obsessed with winning and losing, it disconnects from moral control. In that moment, people don't see right or wrong, only what must be done to survive." Marion listened without reacting. She just looked at Tyler and said softly, "You may be blind for a moment, but the injured still see clearly who held the knife." Silence. Tears fell on the backs of his hands. In the following weeks, I read the center's regular reports. Tyler began relearning from scratch. Transparency, delaying gratification, financial self-control. He had to log every dollar, write feelings when tempted, and learn to say, "I was wrong" without excuses. Part of the program required letters to victims, not apologies, but admissions. The first letter to Marion arrived on day 43. His handwriting was steady, but the words made her stop halfway. I used to think money could fix everything, but it was money that made me forget who I was. I didn't just make you thirsty, I made you thirst for love. Marion folded it and said quietly, "I'll keep it, but I won't answer yet." When the center asked me to attend the final session, I agreed. Tyler looked different, thinner, calmer eyes. He talked about fearing the empty moment after each bet, the void he filled by controlling others. I just listened, no judgment, no interruptions. Sometimes silence is the only way to tell the truth. After 90 days, Tyler was allowed a temporary home release. Marion set strict boundaries. "You can talk to us, but every conversation is supervised. No money, no gifts, no borrowing." He nodded, for the first time without arguing. I saw the same boy I'd taught to swing a bat now standing across an uncrossable gap. When he left, I went to my office and looked at the safe resting under the desk. I laid a hand on the cold lock. Hope might spark, but the lock stays on our final line between the past and whatever remains of trust. After Tyler completed the program, the center's summary read, "The patient shows renewed awareness of harmful behavior and capacity for accountability." Promising words, but I'd heard promises before. This time, I didn't trust words, I wanted verified actions. I opened a separate account called Cole Foundation Recovery Aid, a dignity recovery fund for gambling addicts. No real names, no ties to personal or company assets. It would transfer $300 monthly, with a note, "Temporary support for reintegration." I wanted to see whether a hidden hand would help Tyler stand up or if he'd fall back. The first month, per the center's spending reports, he used every dollar as intended. $900 for a small Tucson rental, $180 for groceries, $70 for gas to work, the rest for therapy fees. No gambling transactions, no luxury spending. What surprised me more were his work hours. 8 hours at the community college, mopping floors, replacing lights, cleaning classrooms, jobs he once called stopgaps. In month 2, he still received $300, still didn't ask who sent it, didn't cut his hours, and didn't misuse a cent. I noticed a small but crucial sign. Real humility doesn't need to announce itself. It just stays quiet. By May, I raised the support to $800 with a simple note. This may continue if behavior remains consistent. 3 days later, the bank sent an unexpected report. The beneficiary, Tyler, had called the branch to verify the source. The teller's note made me read it twice. The client said if this money is from someone he hurt, he needs to make amends before accepting it. The bank didn't reveal the sender per policy. I stayed silent. But I stared at that line for a long time, feeling both warm and sore. He wasn't running by spending. He was facing it. A week later, I learned Tyler donated $500 from that sum to a nonprofit protecting seniors from financial abuse. I had to read it 3 times to be sure it wasn't a typo. He didn't know the founder was an old friend of Linda's, the one who sent me the report. She said only, "Lawrence, this is a sign of genuine moral progress. Doing the right thing under financial pressure means he's recovering not by intellect, but by conscience." I didn't tell Marion. She kept her distance, agreeing to hear about Tyler only through the center. But I knew if there was ever a time to test him, it was now. I asked an old friend, Thomas Hill, once Tyler's partner at his former marketing firm, to reach out. Under the cover of Business Restructuring, Thomas invited Tyler to consult on a compassionate transition. project the same model he once tried to exploit to seize guardianship. Thomas told him, $50,000 for 6 weeks of work. We just need you to show us how to persuade seniors to legally transfer assets. Nothing illegal, just soft ethical guidance. I sat in my office, headphones plugged into the live recording of the Tucson coffee shop meeting. On the other end, Thomas's voice was steady. Then came Tyler's low and brief. I did that before, and it was a crime, not a transition. You're exaggerating, Thomas pushed. This is a legal second chance, good money, nobody gets hurt. Tyler sighed. The last time I said that, my mother almost died of thirst. I don't want that kind of money. And if you really plan to do it, I'll call the police. The talk ended with a chair scraping hard. An hour later, Thomas sent me the recording with a text. He passed the test. That night, I opened the safe and looked at the old case files. Every document was still there, every signature still cold. But inside me, something shifted like an old hinge just got a drop of oil. I don't know if Tyler deserves to be trusted again. I only know that, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I can look toward the future without feeling afraid. Because sometimes justice doesn't end with a verdict. It ends with the right choice when no one is watching. 18 months after the arrest, Tucson wasn't where Tyler ran to anymore. It was where he learned to slow down. Marion kept her stance. Forgiveness doesn't erase the offense. It stops the offense from continuing. I understood, so when Linda called to say Tyler wanted to meet, I didn't object, just asked one question. Do we need both attorneys present as witnesses? Linda answered with a small laugh. This is your family, Lawrence, but I do think the paperwork should still be there. We set the meeting at her office. On a clear fall morning, no hugs, no tears. The room was wide and bright. A walnut table, the scent of fresh paper mixed with Earl Grey. Linda sat in the middle with 3 thick folders in front of her. Tyler walked in thinner. An old but clean shirt, hands clasped behind his back. He nodded to his mother, then to me. No one spoke. Only Linda's fountain pen whispered across the page, breaking the meeting into sections like a contract. This isn't a make-up, she opened. This is a new covenant about boundaries and responsibility. She read each condition, voice clear and even like a clock. 1. Conditional contact. All calls must be scheduled by email or text, meetings only in public places, 60-minute limit. 2. Work and transparency. Maintain steady employment for at least 24 months. Send quarterly therapy and financial reports to me, the independent monitor. 3. Financial responsibility. Pay back $50 a month for legal costs and damages. No touching any assets or trusts. 4. Disinheritance. Tyler has no right to discuss or request any financial benefits for the duration of his parents' lives. 5. Termination clause. Violation of any term ends all contact permanently. I looked at Tyler as Linda read the last term. He didn't react, just nodded like a man who knew this sentence was lighter than what he deserved. Then Linda opened the second folder and slid it toward him. And here's the part you asked to add. A technical confession. I frowned. Tyler spoke softly. I want everyone to know how I did it. Not to excuse it, but so no one else can do the same. Inside were 8 typed pages, chilling in detail. How he cut the waterlock seal without leaving a mark. How he tuned pressure down to 15 psi to avoid suspicion. How he framed videos to make his mother look weaker, and the funneling move, his term for steering Marion toward a voluntary decision to enter assisted living. I read, a cold wave rising in my chest. Marion sat upright, her hand gripping her purse strap. Linda flipped through, read fast, then closed it, her voice firm. I'll keep this as a defense manual. If someone brings me a similar case, I'll know what to look for. You just turned your guilt into a warning for others. Marion finally spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but each word cut like a thin blade. Do you understand the difference between helping and abusing, Tyler? He lifted his head and looked at her for the first time. I do now, Mom. Helping is when the other person keeps their dignity. Abuse is when you take it away, even with just words. The room went still. No one needed to add more. Linda nodded slightly and slid the last set of papers toward us. Patterson Family Covenant Memorandum of Agreement. She lowered her voice. This isn't a sentence, and it isn't reconciliation. It's the only way for everyone to keep living without further harm. We signed. The ink dried slowly. Our lines, trembling faintly with nearly 2 years of fatigue. Tyler took his copy, bowed, and left no hug, no thank you. When the door closed, Marion exhaled, eyes on the paper in front of her. A contract-style family, she said hoarsely. No illusions left. I looked out the window at the slow-falling leaves. Maybe that's right. Our kinship now is bound not by blood, but by signatures. And bitter as it is, I know it's the only way to keep what's left of the human part in what we call family. The next spring, Tucson warmed early. Tyler had steady work at the community technical college, starting as a night janitor, sweeping lobbies, mopping halls, fixing fluorescent lights. 6 straight months without a day off. Then the tech dean offered to move him to building maintenance for electrical and plumbing, with a full-time contract. One morning, I got a short email from him. Dad, Mom, the school gave me a 3-day weekend. Can I swing by to check the yard? Sprinklers. I think there's a leak. Marion read it, thought a long moment, then said, if he's just fixing sprinklers, let him. But I'll be standing right there. I nodded. We don't trust by feelings anymore, we trust by rules. Saturday morning, Tyler arrived on time, an old pickup, work shirt with the school logo. He brought full tools, gloves on, and greeted us in a low voice. I'm here just to work. I won't go inside, won't bother anyone. Marion pointed out the water valve and watched from the porch. Tyler knelt by the grass, swapped lines, checked pressure, then cleaned every plastic scrap. No complaints, no asking for water, no mention of pay. When he finished, he coiled the hose, wiped his boots, and said, I tested it 3 times. The sprinklers run evenly, no leaks. If anything comes up, call a company, not me, to keep things objective. Marion looked at him a long time and simply said, all right, thank you. He bowed slightly, got in the truck, and left. That whole morning was just that do it right, say enough, leave on time. That night, Marion said nothing, just wrote one line in her notebook. Today, the water ran steady. So did he. For the next 6 months, Tyler kept the pattern. He dropped by once a month for yard maintenance, always with notice, always with a witness. And per the agreement, Dr. Elaine Martinez, the family therapist, began observing the on-site interactions. She came with a clipboard, only taking notes. Whenever Tyler spoke to his mother, he asked permission before touching anything. Mom, can I move this pot to reach the pipe? Mom, I'll put it back where it was. Marion nodded or shook her head. Not warm, not cold. In her reviews, Dr. Martinez noted, Tyler has shifted from a calculating, self-serving mode to a service and respect mode. He isn't seeking rewards. He focuses on doing what's right within, allowed boundaries. I didn't celebrate. I know true remorse doesn't need to show it needs to repeat right actions long enough to become habit. Our legal barriers stayed intact. Linda wouldn't change any trust or covenant terms. However, after reading Dr. Martinez's report, she proposed a small add-on, a conditional forgiveness clause. Under it, if Tyler keeps a clean record for 5 straight years, no debts, no violations, no boundary crossing, the Cole Foundation will make a symbolic annual gift, $1,000 paid directly to a charity of his choice, never passing through his hands. Linda explained, The goal isn't money, it's sustained behavior. When he knows his effort creates value for others, he won't need a personal reward. Marion listened and gave a faint smile, the first I'd seen in months. Then she added softly, like reminding herself, "He's different now, but the lock stays on." That line made me think of the safe under my desk. The lock still there, cold and heavy. I knew what she meant. Trust can rekindle, but the lock shouldn't open just because we feel something. The witnessed visits continued, steady as audits between people and their conscience. No hugs, no tears, just propriety. And in that propriety, I sometimes notice something simple. Sometimes family doesn't need harmony. It just needs to stop hurting each other. On the last evening of month 6, the porch sprinklers arced evenly. Marion sat on the wooden chair, watching the water sparkle in the sunset, and whispered, "Maybe, for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of the sound of water." I didn't answer. I just sat beside her, listening to the sprinklers, the small sound of repair. Small, but real. 3 years later, things weren't what they used to be, but they weren't a wound either. Tyler is now the maintenance lead at Sunset Mesa, the senior facility that once served his scheme. Ironic, yes, but fitting. He spends his days with pipes, pumps, and older folks, the very people who could have been victims of the trick he tried on his mother. When Marion and I volunteer in the garden there, we see him pass by, uniform stained with soil and machine oil. He gives a short smile, doesn't avoid us, doesn't try to win us over. In the East Garden, where we grow lavender and mint, he installed drip lines and tuned each head to spray evenly, no more, no less. We watch not to monitor, but to understand. To understand that some children only change when they redo the small acts of love with their hands and sweat, not with apologies. To understand that some cracks don't need to be sealed, just kept clean so they don't rot further. Our family didn't go back. It transformed. Fewer illusions, more principles, fewer expectations, more truth. Marion is healthier now. She still goes for regular checkups and keeps the walker in storage as a reminder. I asked if she'd ever throw it away. She smiled. No, that frame isn't for holding up a leg anymore. It's for holding off forgetfulness. I still keep a journal. On the last page this year, I wrote, "I once heard the faint drip like an accusation. Today, it roars like truth unlocked. Every time I turn on the porch hose, I remember the night I set the trap, the first night I saw betrayal's face. Now the sound isn't judgment. It's proof that justice sometimes arrives quietly through numbers, through the water meter, through bills, through details that don't know how to lie. Tyler still sends regular therapy reports and still pays $50 a month toward legal costs. No one brings up money anymore, the terms are unchanged. Linda says, barriers don't hurt anyone if they're built with reason, not hatred. I agree. We keep the trust and the boundaries not from fear, but because trust can't be re-signed in a single apology. It has to be rebuilt by time and behavior. Sometimes Tyler stops by briefly, 30 minutes, per the rules. He sits on the porch and shares small stories from the facility. A 92-year-old woman who still waters her plants every morning, or a stubborn veteran who refuses a wheelchair. Marion listens, smiles slightly, and says, "You're doing well. Keep it steady." He answers, soft but firm, "I will, Mom, not just the sprinklers." When he leaves, I see her eyes gentler. Not wet, not cold. I know that, in those fine lines, there's something called conditional forgiveness, enough to leave a way back, not enough to forget why he was sent away. That afternoon, sunlight came through the window and glinted off the full stream at the faucet. I wrote one more line under my journal entry. Love doesn't mean putting up with abuse. Forgiveness is a privilege, not an obligation, and that privilege belongs only to those who keep it clean. When I closed the book, the sprinklers played their steady, wordless music. Water under full pressure, strong, honest, no longer turned the wrong way. I smiled and watched Marion in watering the plants. In the end, life is like a home's plumbing. You only find the leaks by looking for where to tighten and where to repair, and only when you do that can the water truly flow. Thank you for staying with me to the very end of this story. If you're hearing this, maybe your heart also carries a small crack about family, about trust, or about someone you loved and had to learn to keep at arm's length. I want to ask you honestly, do you think conditional forgiveness is the only way to keep family alive while keeping your own peace? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'll read every line, because sometimes those words are the best part of a story. And if this made you pause for a moment to think of someone, please leave a like and a quick subscribe so we can meet again in the next journeys where I'll share more about people who lost, who failed, yet chose to keep going. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time, the most precious thing no fund could ever buy. Your time is the stream that cools this story.